My name is Jeremiah Runcer, and I am the Director of Marketing at Sandboxx. So Sandboxx is a veteran-owned company headquartered out of Arlington, Virginia. Primarily what we've done for the past, we'll call it 8 or 9 years, is letter sending. So we have an app, you type your letter in the app, we send your letter, we have an entire system that processes your letters to recruits at basic training. Primarily, that's the demographic that we're serving. So supporters that are writing to their recruits and recruits that are receiving the letters. Now, late last year, Sandboxx raised about $8 million in venture capital. So we're kind of looking how we can expand that and serve service members better post-graduation of training outside of just the primary letter product. So the culture at Sandboxx is great. It's great because, one, it's a veteran-owned company. So Sam Meek is the CEO and co-founder. He's a Marine veteran. Half of our board is our veterans who have been in the military. And we've also got the other co-founder's a guy named General Ray Smith. So his nickname's E-Tool. Probably worth looking up how he got that. But they've been a great team to kind of lead the company. But within that culture, there's quite a few veterans that work here. There's definitely significantly more civilians than there are veterans, but it's nice because we've got, a previous West Point cadet who's also was a helicopter pilot. He flew UH-60 Blackhawks. I'm a veteran myself, surprisingly. We have a bunch of veterans that have done other things within operations. We have military spouses that we hire that do a few random things kind of throughout the company. So just in general, a huge veteran culture within there. But I mean, of all of our employees, I think we make up maybe 10%. The rest of them are really awesome, really smart people that are just civilians that are helping kind of support the military community. Yeah, so we just raised $8 million late last year. And with that capital, we're kind of looking at doing two things: hiring a more robust team and building out new product offerings to serve the military community outside of just the letters product. So that could be things like basically anything that we'll consider it beyond basic training. So starting with new features like digital wallet for post-mail shopping. It's another product that we're kind of looking at. We've developed a version 1 of that. We're moving into V2 here in the next few months. And just other potentially secure communication platforms and things like that we can use to kind of nurture the community after they use the letter product. So that should be super helpful because we've kind of built out this robust system. The letters are working great. So, what else can we do now? But with the team, I mean, we're looking at growing our marketing team, we're looking at growing our engineering team, we want to grow our product team, and all those core functions that really kind of support growth within especially a startup company. Veterans are great for a few reasons. One, they just have a great work ethic. I've hardly met somebody who wasn't a veteran that didn't work hard. So there's that, but also, I think the thing that probably doesn't get talked about enough is that a lot of times veterans come out of service with not a lot of translatable skills. Things like if you want to come into tech, it's not like you did a lot of technical things per se in the government side because those jobs aren't really there. A lot of them are kind of like entry level to mid-level jobs, and then as you get up, they're more leadership positions. What's awesome though, and what I've come to find is that they're very adaptable. So hiring veterans kind of, you might hire somebody who's not a software developer or who doesn't have experience, customer happiness, but they learn these things pretty quickly. And probably a good example of that is one of our primary, we got a guy named Paul Davis who works out here. He used to be the command sergeant major for Recruit Training Depot Paris Island. He's a retired command sergeant major that ran recruiting at Paris Island for the Marines. He's now our director of military relations at Sandboxx. Not really a job that you would think would translate, but he's been great at that because he just understands that community that he's working with. So it's not like, I think the real takeaway is that these things don't have to necessarily be a one-to-one match in job titles. It's just that, like, I was ironically talking to one of my friends this morning who is getting he's going through a Salesforce Trailhead program right now. He can still probably get out in the next 3 or 4 years, and he's trying to transition into tech once he gets out. Indianapolis kind of being a hub for tech works really, really well there. So, I think that that's kind of the sentiment, is that tech is a really awesome community that you can kind of dive into, and a lot of it's learn as you go. And I think that culture is created by the fact that, like I was telling him today, like you don't go to school to be a product manager, and you don't go to school to be a product owner, and rarely do you go to school to even be like a director of product. Those are kind of like on the job training skills that you learn, which makes it really nice now for veterans coming off of active duty, because you can kind of jump into that and really dive head first and learn that job as you go, and a lot of times get really good at it just kind of by being very self-motivated. For veterans looking to transition into tech roles, I'd say there's probably three things that are really important. One is fundamentally understanding the technology landscape and how all of it works together. So, understanding primarily if you're in tech, you're going to have a sales development team, you're going to have a sales team, you're going to have a marketing team, you're going to have a product team. There's going to be, user attributes associated with things. There's going to be CRMs. So no matter what function you work in, all those things are important that you probably don't have experience with in the military side. So I think it's really good to understand just how all of those pieces work together, because once you kind of get it down at one company, it translates pretty well. Number two is really kind of getting efficient and understanding like that in the military you do a lot of jobs, and it's kind of inherent in the culture that you kind of have to be a jack of all trades, master of none. And as you transition to the civilian workforce, and especially in tech, there's usually a specific job for everybody. So it's kind of good to learn, what do I want to focus on? Is it product management? Is it marketing? Is it sales? Is it customer success, customer happiness, whatever your team calls it, and really dive deep on that and learn those jobs really well. Three is there are a lot of training and certification programs out there that I think are really underutilized. Things like Google Analytics individual qualification, not super easy to get, but once you get that, that's kind of that's a great degree almost in itself. Google AdWords, great. You want to go through Salesforce Trailhead, there's a lot of times a cost associated with that, but I think that Salesforce has a VetForce program that's free to veterans. If you're in the military, you can use things like I think it's called the Army Ignite program to do certifications on the outside, like your project management certification. Super beneficial to learn good project management, because again, like you kind of go through the military using a lot of military systems, but you don't really get the opportunity to use things that translate really well to the civilian world. So as you kind of look at that transition, what are the types of things that you need to be looking at? And the tools that you can use to help yourself be more successful in that job. And four, maybe it's just really, not that this is necessarily hard, I think, for a lot of veterans, but understanding culturally there's a big difference between how the civilian workforce operates and how the military operates. And I think a lot of people that make that transition, they either learn it before, and that's good, or they learn it on the job, and that's sometimes a little bit more difficult, because you kind of come in, you're like, I've been yelling at people, or I've been yelled at my whole life, and then you come into tech culture, and they're like people walking in at 10:30 a.m. with coffee in hand, like you're out in California, everybody's wearing flip-flops to work, and I think there's kind of a culture shock sometimes when you're like, this is what the community is like. It's not super structured. People are calling each other dude. It's nice. It's nice once you get the hang of it, but it's definitely probably foreign to a lot of people in the military. If you want to support the veteran community, if anybody wants to support the veteran community, I think that the number one thing anyone can do is be receptive to the fact that they probably aren't going to come out of the gate with a lot of the skills that you might be looking for, but the potential is always there. I like this guy I was talking about earlier. He has a lot of potential to be very good at any of these jobs. Although he hasn't done some of them, he could pick it up very quickly. But I think a lot of times we get stuck on the fact that maybe they haven't been a product manager for 5+ years, or maybe they don't have a bachelor's degree because they're working on it now because they spent 20 years in the military and that's been their primary focus. But looking at a lot of these jobs, a degree is far less important. One, two, that they just they translate really well into these skill sets that, if you're a product manager, it's really important that you're organized. It's important you understand the technical aspect. It's important that you um, can work well in a team, that you can communicate effectively what you want to do and what you think, a product roadmap should look like. And it's important that you can work with a dev team and that you can kind of be a liaison between other people. And those are all skills that translate really well. But maybe you've never been a product owner or a product manager or a director of product. But you could probably be better than a lot of other people who may not have a lot of those other, we'll call them like soft-ish skills. So I think that that's really important, that you just understand that they may not have those exact skills once they start, but I've never met somebody who has worked in tech as a veteran that can't pick them up quickly. And maybe lastly, that the tech community is growing so much, and this is, I think, probably still relatively new to. I talk to a lot of, I'm still in the military, and I talk to a lot of people that are in the military now, and it's not quite as, maybe I would compare it to like medical sales of the 90s and the early 2000s, where there was just this booming industry. If you worked in medical sales, it was like this really illustrious career, I guess we'll call it. And tech is kind of becoming that, but it's also becoming a great culture environment where like you can come into it, you don't have to know everything, because there's so many startups where a lot of people don't know anything and they're just kind of figuring it out as they go. And as long as you can do that, like, it's awesome. So if you want to support the military community or veteran community, really be willing to kind of see through a lot of like the resume and can these people do this job? And two, really look for, like talent. Maybe that's a good way to say it. Look for talent in these individuals and motivation, because I think that that's going to go a lot further in the long run. If you're looking for, some job in tech, Sandboxx is a great place to start, especially as a veteran. And I don't just say that as a veteran who's worked in tech or as a veteran who's working at Sandboxx right now. Truly, it's a great company that supports the veteran community, that also, supports tech as a whole. It's a really unique opportunity. It's the reason I came here. It's the reason why a lot of other veterans come to Sandboxx, because you can kind of get your toes wet, I guess, in the tech community, but also still continue to serve the military community as well. And there's very few places you can do that. Right now, we got 30 plus positions open, from engineering to administrative to marketing, product, customer service, finance. We've got a director of finance that we're hiring right now. We've even got positions like on a marketing team for Air Force Relations Manager, Army Relations Manager, Navy Relations Manager, that you can directly serve the communities that you came from as a veteran. Even other things like UI, UX designer. So all types of positions open, that we'd love to have other veterans out here. We have some great veterans right now. They do an awesome job at Sandboxx. So we're always looking for more.